Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 11th of February. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Great to have you with us on this rather dusty day here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. The Korean government logs a record $10 billion tax revenue shortfall last year on the back of lower corporate tax and VAT earnings. The United States confirms the death of Kayla Mueller, an American aid worker who had been held hostage by Islamic State militants in Syria. Plus, several citizens are killed as fighting in eastern Ukraine heats up as both sides try to make gains ahead of a four-way leaders' peace summit in Belarus set to take place on this Wednesday. Our top story this morning, as the debate rages on over whether to fund welfare programs without raising taxes, the Finance Ministry reported on Tuesday that the government saw a record tax revenue shortfall of some $10 billion last year. 2014 marked the third straight year, in fact, that the government missed its tax revenue target. Hwang Jie reports.
Korea's tax revenue came in at around 205 trillion won, or roughly $190 billion last year. That is $10 billion shy of the government's goal. Last year's shortfall was the largest on record, breaching that posted at the height of the Asian financial crisis in 1998. The Finance Ministry largely attributes the shortfall to sluggish corporate tax revenue stemming from companies' weak performances. It also says slumping domestic demand and a strengthening Korean won against the greenback prompted a fall in value-added taxes and customs duties. For next year, the government is aiming to collect tax revenue that's up around 2% from last year's target. It's confident about the goal, saying it will push through structural reforms and economic revitalization plans this year. But experts are skeptical about it.
The pace of recovery in China and in European countries is likely to fall below expectations this year, and the economy at home is not showing signs of a strong recovery either.
Given that Korea's tax revenue is expected to fall short of the government target for the fourth straight year in 2015, which could limit government spending on key areas. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
The number of new jobs added in Korea last month dropped to its lowest level in almost 2 years. Data from Statistics Korea shows the number of people in work stood at around 25 million in January, up around 350,000 from 1 year ago. The agency says, however, that the slowing growth came from the high base effect in January last year, when Korea created more than 700,000 jobs. It added that the Lunar New Year holiday, one of the country's biggest, fell in January last year, creating more jobs in the retail and transportation sectors, while the holiday falls in February this year. The U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee has spoken with one voice, unanimously voting to approve Ashton Carter as the next U.S. Secretary of Defense. The 25-0 vote signals the former Deputy Defense Secretary is unlikely to face much, if any, Republican resistance to his confirmation when it goes to a full Senate vote. A source at the Senate says the full chamber will probably vote on Carter's nomination on Wednesday or Thursday. If that's the case, Carter could start his new role at the Pentagon by the end of the week. The 60-year-old, who has tough views on how to deal with North Korea's nuclear weapons program, was President Obama's first pick to replace outgoing Defense Chief Chuck Hagel. The U.S. ambassador to South Korea says North Korea should not be demanding preconditions from Seoul in return for inter-Korean talks. Meeting with South Korean lawmakers at the National Assembly's Special Committee on Inter-Korean Relations and Cooperation on Tuesday, Mark Lippert used the example of Pyongyang asking for supplies and aid from the South in the past in return for them coming back to the dialogue table. Lippert added that the Obama administration is trying to resolve North Korea issues with its close ally South Korea and stressed that Washington cannot accept a nuclear North Korea. The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, currently on a tour of Asia, has stressed that Washington would not stand in the way of a possible meeting of the leaders of both Koreas in Russia in May. Tony Blinken also says inter-Korean talks may be the key to denuclearizing North Korea. Ji Myung-gil has more.
U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken said the U.S. strongly supports President Park Geun-hye's efforts to hold inter-Korean talks as it could help pave the way for Pyongyang to drop its nuclear ambitions. However, he believes Pyongyang is not showing sincerity towards positive engagement or denuclearization. And whether President Park meets with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at a war anniversary ceremony in Russia is solely her decision. Blinken's trip to Seoul comes amid lingering concerns that Washington's tougher stance on North Korea may hamper Seoul's bid for dialogue. U.S. slapped fresh sanctions on North Korea last month following its alleged cyber attack on Sony Pictures. Before departing for China, the top American official stressed the role of Beijing and its exceptional leverage over Pyongyang. He said the biggest instability in the region was Pyongyang's nuclear pursuit and that China could persuade Pyongyang to resume credible disarmament talks, given its long-standing ties. At his last stop in Tokyo, the high-ranking U.S. official is expected to discuss regional issues such as Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Seoul continues to demand a sincere apology from Tokyo over the matter as a catalyst to break the current icy relations between the neighboring countries. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
The family of the American woman held hostage by Islamic State in Syria say they are heartbroken after being sent information from the militant group that she is dead. Kayla Mueller's death was confirmed by President Barack Obama, who vowed to bring her captors to justice. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The United States has confirmed the death of an American female aid worker held hostage by the Islamic State militant group in Syria. Islamic State said last Friday that 26-year-old Kayla Mueller was killed in a Jordanian airstrike on the IS stronghold of Raqqa. IS didn't offer any proof to back up its assertion, and the U.S. government remains skeptical about the group's claim. However, U.S. authorities said Tuesday that Ms. Mueller's family received a private message from IS this week with additional information, which confirmed she was dead. Sources who have been briefed on the evidence of death have told U.S. media that it consisted of at least 3 photographs, all headshots. That said, it's not known whether the injuries seen in the photos were consistent with the militant group's claim that she died in an airstrike. Ms. Mueller is the only American woman known to have died in IS captivity. In recent months, Islamic State has beheaded 3 Americans, 2 Britons, and 2 Japanese hostages, most of them aid workers and journalists. In a statement, U.S. President Barack Obama said he condemned the terrorist group and stated that those responsible for Ms. Mueller's death will be brought to justice. This latest development comes as multiple sources say President Obama will send Congress an authorization for the use of military force to fight IS on Wednesday. The president is expected to ask for a 3-year authorization. It will also leave open the option to send in ground troops if needed. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, Apple, already riding high on the success of its latest iPhone 6 models, has set yet another first in the corporate world, becoming the first company in history to have a market value of over $700 billion US. The California-based firm's stock closed up nearly 2% on Tuesday at a record high of slightly over $122. Making Apple worth an estimated $710.8 billion. And just to give you an idea of how huge Apple is now, if you were to combine Google and Microsoft, their combined market cap would only be worth a few billion more than Apple's. This enviable new record comes a matter of weeks after Apple reported staggering profits of $18 billion in the 4th quarter of last year. And 2 of the world's other big tech giants out there have reached a settlement over their drawn-out legal battle. In a joint statement, Samsung Electronics and Microsoft announced the end to a contract dispute in a US court as well as at the International Chamber of Commerce. Microsoft filed a lawsuit against Samsung last year over unpaid royalty fees related to software patents used in smartphones. The terms of the final settlement were not released. Now, we're keeping an eye on a very important meeting that's set to take place later today in Belarus. It's a peace summit that brings together the leaders of Ukraine and Russia, as well as France and Germany. They're all going to be sat around the same table. For more on this, we connect to Eunice Kim at the News Centre. Eunice, deadly fighting in Ukraine between pro-Russian separatists and Kiev's forces have persisted for about 10 months now. And there's been an upsurge yet again ahead of this four-way peace summit.
That's right, Mark, and it seems both sides were looking to make military gains ahead of the top-level meeting that will take place in the Belarusian capital of Minsk later on this Wednesday local time. Officials said at least 7 civilians were killed and dozens of others hurt when pro-Russia rebels launched rocket attacks on a residential area Tuesday night. Also on Tuesday, in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk, a key military base came under attack. Video showed where a rocket had hit the grounds of a military headquarters. This as the volunteer battalion called Azov, fighting on the side of Kiev, launched an offensive against the separatists near the city of Mariupol.
And Eunice, in Belarus, peace talks have already begun with lower-level officials ahead of this highly anticipated summit between the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, Germany and France.
Right. Representatives from the OSCE and the pro-Russia separatists are already in Minsk, and one of the leaders of the rebel contact group, Denis Pushilin, told journalists that he had handed over a proposal for de-escalation to the contact group of the central government, a proposal which included both political and military steps. Now, countering earlier reports by Russian media, he did say there was still no major progress or agreement in ceasefire talks. This as the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, Germany and France will try to hammer out a peace plan that is expected to include clauses on a new demilitarized zone and the withdrawal of heavy weapons to end this conflict, Mark, that has so far killed more than 5,300 people, according to the UN.
And Eunice, to yet another unsettling, but we might say not overly surprising development in the banking sector. This time it involves the British bank HSBC. A BBC report alleges the bank helped its wealthiest customers dodge taxes, and the sums we're talking about here really make your eyes water.
Right. The BBC program Panorama did air that report over the weekend, saying that thousands of documents from HSBC's private Swiss bank showed that it had helped more than 100,000 customers conceal millions of dollars in assets, thereby helping them evade paying taxes. Now, HSBC did issue a statement denying that all of its Swiss account holders had evaded taxes. It did say, though, it did acknowledge that some clients took advantage of bank secrecy. The UK's biggest bank added it was cooperating with relevant authorities. Concurrently, reporting by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists said clients who held such Swiss accounts did include athletes, celebrities, royalty, and politicians. Now, only 7,000 accounts were those of Britons, according to this BBC report, which leaves many more accounts belonging to those from other countries. So authorities from the U.S., France to Argentina, they are calling for criminal investigations in their own countries. A judge in Belgium has said that he is considering issuing international arrest warrants as Swiss politicians are calling for a regulatory probe, Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Eunice, for your reports there, and we'll see you back at noon.
See you then.
The star anchor for NBC News in the US is taking a break from broadcasting as his employer looks into some deceitful statements he made in relation to his experience reporting on the Iraq War in 2003. Brian Williams issued an on-air apology last week after claiming a number of times over the years that he had been on board a military helicopter that was shot down, a claim which turned out to be completely made up. Our Connie Lee reports.
Good evening, I'm Lester Holt.
It's Lester Holt filling in for Brian Williams on NBC's Nightly News. Williams, who's been anchoring this newscast for more than 10 years now, remained off the air on Monday as controversy swirled around him. Holt addressed the issue.
We want to take just a moment to tell you where Brian is tonight. In a message to his colleagues over the weekend, Brian told us he's taking several days off this broadcast amid questions over how he recalled certain stories he covered. He'll be off while this issue is dealt with.
Williams took himself off the air over the weekend because of a false claim that he was on a helicopter that was hit by a grenade in Iraq back in 2003. Over the years, Williams has retold the story many times, but has now admitted the claim was false after veterans from the incident reported on social media and media outlets that Williams was not on that helicopter.
I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft.
In the first published interview out on Monday in the U.S. military newspaper Stars and Stripes, Williams said he assumed the helicopter took damage. But despite his apology and explanation, many journalists and military personnel are calling for his resignation. NBC has launched an internal investigation into Williams, who is now also facing scrutiny over statements he made on other major news events. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Now we're going to change gears somewhat and take a look at a couple of interesting experimental exhibitions that are taking place at a special art centre right here in the Korean capital of Seoul. One tells a tale about a museum in order to change how we think about art spaces, and the other brings together artists and curators from 4 different nations for a united approach to art in Asia. Our Im Yoon-hee has more.
Sometimes you have to look outside of the box, and you'll find art where you're least expecting it. The Art Sunjae Center is one of Korea's leaders in current and experimental contemporary art. Their most recent experiment includes the rather unconventional. Here, smoking is not a pastime, but is instead part of the art. This piece by world-recognized artist Hee-man Chung takes the art experience to a whole new level.
Like reading a story changes your idea of reality. And in a way, by smoking inside the museum, it changes your relationship with the museum.
Also at the Art Sunjae Center on joint display is Discordant Harmony. The exhibition is in collaboration with the Goethe Institute and brings together 12 artists from 4 different countries: Korea, China, Taiwan, and Japan. These global artists aim to look at the relationships between countries in Asia, examined through art. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
A good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the ongoing investigation over Park Tae-hwan and his doping scandal, where the latest reports expect the Olympic swimmer to face a 20-month ban, putting him in doubt for the 2016 Rio Summer Games. Now, according to reports coming out on Tuesday, Park Tae-hwan is set to leave to Switzerland on the 22nd of the month, where he's set to face a hearing with FINA at the end of the month. There, he is expected to be given a suspension of 16, 20, or 24 months, with Park Tae-hwan most likely set to receive a 20-month suspension. While a 2-year ban will prevent him from competing in the Rio Summer Games, a 20-month ban will give him 3 months to prepare, which won't be enough time for him to prepare and pretty much ending his career. Well, on a brighter note, this past weekend was a memorable one for super rookie Kim Se-young, who won her first LPGA Tour title during the Pure Soak Bahamas LPGA Classic. And after her dramatic victory, she jumped quite a bit in the latest world rankings. Of course, going into the tournament ranked 40th overall, the 22-year-old jumps up 17 spots after her win and is now ranked 23rd in the world. Of Of course, the win also gives her 150 points in the rookie rankings, giving her the early lead. Meanwhile, Lydia Ko, despite finishing a stroke behind Park In-bi, remains the top-ranked golfer for the second straight week, with Park In-bi trailing by just 0.25 points. Now, come June of this year, the 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup will kick off in Canada, with Korea hoping to go as far as they can in the tournament. But they're also hoping for something else come next month, with FIFA set to reveal the host nation of the 2019 Women's World Cup next month in Lausanne, Switzerland. Two countries are in contention, and those two countries being Korea and Switzerland. Now, having already given the rights to the U20 World Cup, if they do win the hosting rights to the 2019 Women's World Cup, they will be automatically given the hosting rights to the U20 Women's World Cup as well, giving them 3 straight years of World Cup events. Now, up until recently, the most popular pirate in the nation was a pirate by the name of Luffy from the ever so popular comic One Piece. But now, the most popular pirate is a baseball player by the name of Kang Jong-ho. Apparently, the interest in Kang is pretty high over in the States, as well as CBS Sports named the Pittsburgh Pirates as one of the winners this past offseason for signing names like A.J. Burnett, Francisco Liriano, and also Kang Jong-ho. As usual, there's still a lot of skepticism over the former next-in hero, but they added that the risk is low for the middle infielder. While Kang is set to travel to Florida with his work visa being issued. Now, a few years back, the current president of FIFA, Sepp Blatter, basically ran for re-election without having any opponents. 2015 comes, and now he's going to run against 3 other candidates. Now, the incumbent president, Sepp Blatter, who has held his position since 1998, will go up against 3 big names, which includes former Portuguese international Luis Figo, Michael van Praag, the chairman of the Dutch Football Association, and the current vice president of FIFA, Prince Ali bin Al Hussein. With recent allegations of corruption within FIFA, chances are Sepp Blatter will be replaced by one of the 3 candidates come May 29th in Zurich, Switzerland. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. More fine dust are blowing into the peninsula, but since we still have lingering dust from yesterday, it's dustier outside in most upper parts of the peninsula. So try not to be outdoors for too long because the levels will not go back to the normal range till the late this evening. In the meantime, some regions will see passing showers later in the day due to the weak trough, and that rain could turn to snow in Chungcheongdo and Gangwon-do provinces, but accumulation should be less than 1 centimeter. And temperature-wise, it should be a few notches higher than yesterday. So let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The daytime high here in the capital will climb up to 6, while the top temperatures in Daegu and Gwangju will rise to 11 and 9, and Busan will peak at 12 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 12 and 9, and Dokdo peaks at 7. Now, readings look to be promising till the end of the week, but we have nationwide rain in the forecast on Sunday afternoon. That's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. Plenty more stories are online, and we'll be back with our next newscast at noon Korea time in about 90 minutes. Until then, goodbye.